Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar on Chinese Tourist 2023. We have a wonderful expert international panel presenting to us tonight. We have a total of 10 speakers, and we have 90 minutes to share the views and the research and the knowledge of so many wonderful experts in the field of global tourism. My name's Steve Noakes, and I'm with you tonight from Jakarta, Indonesia. I come from Australia, so my version of the English language is the Australian version, the Aussie English. But I won't be talking too much tonight. My job is the gatekeeper to ensure that we can get through and listen to our wonderful speakers. So on that note, I'm now going to introduce our very first speaker, Dr. Wolfgang Alt from Germany, who has worked extensively in most of his life in the Chinese market. And he's going to be our first presenter this evening. Thank you, Wolfgang.
Thank you very much for having me, and let me share my slides with you.
On that note, I'm now going to introduce our very first speaker, Dr. Wolfgang Alt from Germany.
Okay, so I hope you can see that, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me talk a bit about the restart of China's outbound tourism in the year of the water rabbit, and of course, Happy New Year to all of you. And I will talk about China and tourism in the last 3 years, the current status, the forecast, and how China has changed, and how, of course, the world has changed. And what is this graph on the right-hand side? We will come back also to that in a minute. So I don't have to introduce myself, that Steve already did this. So just to see, yeah, I've been around quite a while, and I published 1 or 2 things about the topic as well. And yeah, but well, this is not important. This is important. We all have noticed, we couldn't help to, that we are living in a VUCA world, that the world is getting more and more volatile. There's more and more uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So when we talk about tourism and further developments, of course, all this we have learned comes with a big grain of salt, and there are a lot of unexpected things happening. We saw, of course, a gray rhino turning into a black swan on 2020. So, and you may remember, oh, Taleb, I'm happy to see you here as well. And so you all remember that New Year's Eve 2019, we were all looking forward to a nice new decade of growing international trips. And at that time, China was responsible for about 11% of all the border crossings, and the UNWTO said, yeah, we will have another 3 to 4% growth in international tourist arrivals. Everything was fine. And then, as we all know too well, something happened, and some news came from Wuhan. And as a result, the Chinese were incarcerated for 3 years, incarcerated in their country, and for many for weeks and months, even in their own apartment. So it was actually today, 24th of January, 3 years ago, that the Chinese Ministry of Culture and Tourism said there will be no more group package travel. And it is only a few days ago that this ban was now officially said to end on February 6th, so in a few weeks. So it is an anniversary today, 3 years of no more group travel. And of course, the virus spread around the world. And in the first 2 months of 2020, we still had about 50 million people traveling from China. But then for the rest of the year, it was only 3.5 million. And 21 and 22, each year we had about 8.9 million Chinese traveling, most of it just to Macau, because Macau was the only place you could go to and go back to China without having to go into quarantine. And these gentlemen on the right, the Baida, the big whites, they took over the country. For most of us, global tourism came back in spring 2022, but the Chinese government continued to have the zero-case policy and play a whack-a-mole game with the virus. But in the end, the virus escaped. And after the Chinese government spent about $1 trillion US dollars on fighting what is now clear has been a lost fight. Then they declared in early December the problem is over, and basically everybody now has to fight for him and herself. And on December 26th, and this is I think why we are all here today, the China National Health Commission said that from the 8th of January, you can travel into China without quarantine, and you can travel to Hong Kong. And they said what is written in red here: outbound travel of Chinese nationals will be restored in an orderly manner according to the international epidemic situation and the capacity of various services. So that was the day when, for many people, including myself, so basically we stopped sleeping because there was so much to do, and so many journalists were coming, and so many companies were thinking about finding out, oh, we don't have a China policy, a plan for the market at all. Tragically, as we are speaking, a lot of people in China are dying from the virus, and we will never know if this will be, in the end, 3 million or 5 million or 8 million or 10 million. Officially, the Chinese government has confirmed that 80% of the Chinese have been infected. And so you can make the calculation. Even if you have 0.3% mortality rate of out of a billion people, that is way too many people dying. But at the same time, that of course also means that herd immunity is reached very fast. And so in China, as we all know, everything happens later but faster. So this is the situation that you see on this picture, a long row of hearses bringing coffins to the crematorium, waiting for days to be in line. So that is the situation as it has developed. And so where are we now, and what does it mean for Chinese outbound tourism? So what it looks like very much is that China has passed its Senate. So if you look at GDP growth rates, and these are official numbers. Let's hope that they are more or less accurate. But you can see that since Chairman Xi took over in 2012, GDP growth quarterly has been going down and down and down and down, except for the one statistical echo at the beginning of 2021. And there is, from my point of view, not much reason to think why this number should ever go much up again. And the other point, which of course is very important, is that according to the government, last year China reached the Senate in terms of population, so that the population is now going down. And so the Shanghai Social Science Academy has said that if we have the stable rate of 1.15 reproduction, then we will go back by 2100 to 587 million Chinese. That will be back to the level of 1954. And this is not including any negative effects of climate change. So probably this is an even too optimistic forecast. So, but this is 2100. So of course, for the next couple of years, as you can see from the graph, the slowdown will be not so much. So does that mean that the Senate of China's outbound tourism has also been reached, maybe by 2019, and we all didn't know about it? And I would say clearly no. When we talk about Chinese outbound tourism, especially if we talk not just going to Hong Kong or to Vietnam, but a little bit further away. We talk about the top 10% of the Chinese rich enough to travel internationally for leisure. And as it seems in the last few weeks, all the information you get from China is that the reintegration into the global economy will intensify again. So because this dual circulation ideas of having concentration on the domestic consumption seems not to work very well. So that will mean not only the leisure tourists are coming back, but also there will be a lot of business trips coming out of China again. So what will happen is that as the economy slows down, the climbing in the society, so the middle class, which is reaching a level of affluence to be able to spend money on international and especially intercontinental trips, will not grow as fast as before. So that means you will have to look more for the repeat visitors and give them a reason why they should come again to your destination rather than having first-time visitors. Also, what we discussed about the age structure of the society. So the Generation Z everybody is talking about will be followed by Generation A, but that will not be so influential, and it will rather be the people my age. So the silver travelers will become more important as target market segments, especially for long distance travel, which is not a bad thing, because these guys normally have more time, so they can they can afford to stay 2 or 3 weeks on a trip, and so they will be very interesting customers. This, if you allow me to brag a bit, this is a slide I was showing in July 2022 at a conference in Manila, the Philippines. And as you can say, I forecasted that end of 2022 or spring 23, China will open up again, and it seems that I was not too wrong. So what is our forecast? So you can see here the development from 2001, and you can see the blue part is Greater China, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and the orange part is the rest of the world. And after this very bad numbers for the last 3 years, so our forecast is that we will have about 110 million border crossings in 2023. 2/3 of this happening in the second half of the year, and about 50-50 between Greater China and the rest of the world. And so for 2024, we are expecting, if there is no new black swan coming along, that we will reach again the level of 2019. So this is a quantitative stuff, and let's look at some qualitative stuff. So because the world is obviously different from what it was before, and I don't want to go into many details here, because I think a lot of the other speakers will talk about this. But clearly, you had changes which already were apparent before the pandemic. So more knowledge, more interest in special interest trips, more travelers from lower tier cities joining the game. Less problems with language, because you have all this wonderful audio translation apps which can help you. But there were also some new developments. So clearly you can see that there is a interest, a growing interest in nature and health. There is the last one, again, connected to the age of the travelers, but also there will be more family travelers, because during the pandemic, people have relearned the importance of the solidarity within a family. And so that is, you can see all the surveys are saying there will be more family members. And anyway, there will be not so many big package tours anymore, but rather smaller groups traveling. and also looking for new destinations. The Chinese had 3 years time to dream about and to learn about where they want to go. So if you are not a destination with the Eiffel Tower, but you have some good program to prepare for the Chinese, you have a much bigger chance now to get Chinese visitors. And you can see that I saw a number that 86% of the Chinese have said they're interested in sustainability. So the green topics and the topics, social topics are becoming more interesting also for Chinese. Last summer was the biggest ever heat wave in Chinese history, and they had drought and floodings and so on. So it was not only the Western countries, but also in China that people felt the results of the climate catastrophe very clearly. And also there's a growing interest in authentic experiences, in having a connection to the local culture, and maybe meeting people who have the same hobby and the same special interest than the visitors. So since 2006, there have been a number of books published about China outbound tourism. You can see some of them. So one by two by myself, one by Gary, and two where we had chapters in. And so that was talking about China outbound tourism 2.0. But now I think we can talk about China outbound tourism 3.0, and it's my great pleasure to announce it to everybody joining this webinar, that and thanking the organizers for giving us this opportunity. So this is the first time since the publication, which was yesterday, that we are talking about this book, which is called 88 Practical Ways to Prepare for the New Wave of Chinese Visitors, the China Outbound Tourism Handbook 2023. And I think Gary Bowerman after me will say more about this book and the structure, but I just can say that we started this last summer and we said, okay, let's finish the text by the end of the year, because we were convinced that early 2023 now, China will open, maybe not the way it happened in the end, but so we were lucky that our forecast was not too bad, so that we have this, we have been able to finish the book. And of course, the last text was just written a week ago as an ebook, so you can do this rather quickly. And so we hope very much that together with trainings, workshops, and other things, that will be a tool for the tourism industry to help to prepare for the new wave of Chinese visitors. Because in the last few weeks, and I'm interested to hear what other people are saying to that, is my impression has been that the industry is not prepared at all for the coming back of the Chinese tourist. A lot of people who have been working as a China guy, China lady in the companies have, of course, been kicked out or moved away or did something else, because the last 3 years there was not much to do for them. So, so a lot of information has been lost. And also the Chinese coming now will be different in their needs, the expectations from the Chinese, which have been coming before the pandemic.
So find a way it will look as if God does not exist.
So this week we are celebrating the start of the water rabbit year, and I will not go into this details, but it's not the rabbit year, it's a water rabbit year, and it's not the spring festival, it's a Chinese New Year. And China does not have a lunar calendar. They have a lunisolar calendar. Never mind, that should not stop us from celebrating, and best wishes. And so I think according to the latest UNWTO numbers, we had 970 million trips last year. So about 600 million less than 2019. And so more than a quarter of this gap is Chinese outbound tourism. And so a big part of this gap will be filled up this year and certainly next year with the Chinese coming back. And we hopefully are well prepared to welcome them. With that, thank you very much for your attention. And again, Happy New Year.
Thank you, Wolfgang. It was a wonderful start to our webinar tonight. We now have over 1,000 people viewing the webinar tonight on different platforms, YouTube and web pages and Facebook and Instagram. And I'm sure that the information that you've laid the foundation for will be much appreciated by many from around the world as we continue tonight. I particularly want to just make a reference to a few people who have joined us tonight, because we have representatives of governments from many parts of all continents. And we've got a couple of special people that I would just like to acknowledge. The first is Talib Rifai, who is with us tonight from Jordan, a former Minister of Planning and International Cooperation in other ministries, including tourism in Jordan, and of course, well known by all of us in the international tourism space as a very successful Secretary General of the UNWTA. Talib, it's nice to see you on the panel, on the audience there tonight. And also Jeffrey Lippman is with us, and Jeffrey has made an enormous contribution to travel and tourism in his lifetime. And it's just great that we have people of his stature listening and participating tonight. And in the Pacific Asia area, Peter Simone is now the chairman of the Pacific Asia Travel Association. And given that China is the pre-COVID and now emerging after COVID as a major force in inbound and outbound tourism in this part of the world, it's important that organisations like the Pacific Asia Travel Association can play their role also, bringing together the destinations of our region. But also we've got people here tonight who do really good things in their places. And one of those is from Laos. Mr. Ken is with us, Suchai, and he's been doing some wonderful work in terms of tourism recovery in a country that's very much developing, and issues of tourism and poverty reduction are critical for destinations like Laos also. I'm going to now ask Gary Bauman to come on and follow up from Wolfgang's comments, in particular about the book that Wolfgang has just mentioned. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Wolfgang. I'll just share quickly. I have just a few slides I will share with you. Give me 1 second. Okay, I hope you can see that.
Yep. Yes, Gary.
I can see it.
Okay, thank you, everybody. As Wolfgang said, we started putting together this book about 6 months ago, but actually the preparation began 3 years ago. As soon as the borders closed, we have been monitoring not just Chinese travel, but we've been looking at the Chinese society, we've been looking at Chinese consumers, the digital economy, lifestyle, absolutely everything that's happening in China in preparation for, as Wolfgang says, this new wave of Chinese visitors that we're seeing. Since the rest of Asia Pacific opened up about a year ago, we've seen different patterns. We've seen different booking, we've seen different travel patterns, and those are going to follow through, particularly this year. This is such a breakneck year for travel and tourism around the world. And of course, China coming back means that we now have all the pieces are back in place in the Asia Pacific travel and tourism industry. So this book that we've put together, the China Outbound Tourism Handbook, is written specifically for the entire travel industry, whether you're a hotelier, whether you're an airline, whether you're a tour operator, any part of, whether you're in F&B, whether you're in travel retail, absolutely everything. We've gone back to basics. We've looked at the developmental drivers of Chinese outbound tourism for the last 25 years. And we've also tried to look ahead at 2030. But what we've really tried to do is look at what are going to be the key themes this year and 2024. So we've pulled together 88, obviously 8 being an auspicious number, 88 key themes that we think are going to influence the development of Chinese outbound travel through 2023 and certainly beyond that. So in terms of the book, there are 88 vital topics. We wrote this at breakneck speed. We've done all the research. And as Wolfgang said, actually the last update was made about a week and a half ago, 47,000 words. It's a big book. It's an ebook. It's 104 pages. And we've made sure all the way through for each topic, there are 3 practical tips. So there's 88 key areas, 3 practical tips per area for everybody in the travel industry to try and leverage everybody's knowledge, everybody's expertise into this new era. Throughout the book, we have citations, mini case studies, and references from 48 countries around the world, referencing what happened in terms of Chinese tourism before and what we think will happen after the pandemic, and also from 25 Chinese cities and provinces from across this huge country. Now, 88 subjects, there are too many to list here, but I just put a few of them there. So some of the things are going to be a little bit obvious in terms of business travel and visit family and friends. You know, we've seen in most countries of the world, those two segments tend to lead the recovery of outbound travel. We expect it to be quite similar from China. Winter sports is huge at the moment in China, but you know, don't just forget that people don't just want to go skiing. They actually want to enjoy winter landscapes, winter foods, that kind of thing as well. Pop culture tourism, I'll talk about in a moment. But you can see there, we've actually gone into real deep detail, looking at issues as diverse as the metaverse, sustainability, duty-free shopping, Chinese brands, camping and glamping. We've gone into deep detail in across the whole of the industry that we think is going to help people around the world to really understand this new wave of Chinese tourism that's coming our way. Where do you find it? Well, the book is an ebook, so it's downloadable from two main places. You can find it on Amazon.com, and you can also find it there at PayHip. There is more information on Wolfgang's website, china-outbound.com. So I thought I would just give you 4 brief tips, and I know time is quite short and there are a lot of speakers to come. 4 of the 88 different segments. One of those we think is quite interesting is city tourism. Now, if we go back 2 or 3 years to the start of the pandemic, a lot of the talk was about rural tourism, escaping to nature, wanting to get out of city environments because we wouldn't feel safe, traveling in cities again. But we've seen around the world, city tourism has come back at a pace. In China, we've seen the leading recovery of travel and tourism domestically has been cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Chongqing, Chengdu. City tourism is not going away. So let's not forget that Chinese tourists have had 3 years where they haven't been able to enjoy, these stellar attractions of cities around the world. I'm currently in Paris. It's Chinese New Year week, and it's very quiet here. It seems quite unusual, but you would expect quite soon some of these grand stores and these beautiful sites that we have in this city will be enjoyed once again by Chinese tourists. Another one there to look at, I think, that's going to be quite important is payments across the travel industry. I'm very lucky I get to travel to travel and tourism conferences around the world, and payments is a big topic right now. How do we manage to work out, not just for Chinese travelers, but for travelers around the world who are digital, they're mobile first, smartphone-based payments. Now, we know that China essentially is moving towards, urban China especially, moving towards a cashless economy almost exclusively, digital payments, mobile payments. How do we dig a little bit deeper into what's happening in the mobile payment space? China has also, we know, introduced its own central bank digital currency, the ECNY. How will that impact payments in future? If you read the book, you'll find out. Night tourism is a topic that doesn't really get too much coverage in the Western world, but in Asia, it's huge at the moment. Many countries, including China, has looked at how there is a big differential between daytime tourism spend and nighttime tourism spend. A lot of tourists, not just in China, but in other countries of Asia, they don't want to spend their time hanging out in restaurants or bars. They want to do things that are more experiential, more aspirational, and that bring alive the city and the culture at night. This is something definitely to watch. And this is something that we've delved into quite deeply in this book, because we think over the next 2 years, night tourism is going to be a major player in delivering new tourism experiences for Chinese travelers. And finally, winter tourism, which I referenced earlier. We remember that Beijing hosted the Winter Olympic Games last year in 2022. This is part of an ongoing trend. As Wolfgang said, we're seeing accelerations of trends that were happening before the pandemic. And winter sports tourism, winter holidays, winter vacations, these are all becoming extremely popular. They have been in China over the past 3 years, and now we will start to see that in terms of outbound travel. But it's not just about skiing. It's not just about snowboarding. It's not just about skating. It's about all the different elements of a winter tourism culture, a winter vacation culture. And that brings in dining, that brings in sightseeing, that brings in snow landscape photography. And we've tried to delve again a little bit deeper into what winter tourism actually means beyond the ski slopes. So that's a whistle-stop tour through the book. There's a lot more I could talk about. We don't have much time, but thank you very much for your time and listening to me today. And both Wolfgang and I are very grateful for this opportunity to present our new book to you.
Great. Thank you, Gary. I think the book's going to be a wonderful contribution to the knowledge and the practical tools that people can use as we all deal with this re-emergence of the Chinese market. For those who are interested, the recording of the webinar today and all the PowerPoint slides will be available by tomorrow on the Tourism Webinar website. So if you would like to share it with your colleagues, you'll be able to do that tomorrow. Our next speaker is from Hong Kong. Professor Haiyan Song is from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. I'll hand across now to Professor Haiyan.
Thank you, Steve, for the introduction. Let me share the screen first. Okay. Yeah, greetings from Hong Kong. And today actually is still a Chinese New Year celebration. We are third day into 2023. So we're still on holiday, but I'm pleased to speak to all of you about the perspective from Asia Pacific, specifically from Hong Kong, Macau, and Japan, Korea, maybe Thailand, and also Singapore. So these are some of the main destinations for China outbound tourism, at least pre-COVID-19. I think this will still be the main top destinations for Chinese tourists. So probably over these few days, you've seen this picture, which symbolize the year of water rabbit, according to Wolfgang. Actually, probably many destinations are expecting the Chinese tourists arriving in their destinations. I think this excitement is justified because many destinations has lose tourism income from the Chinese outbound tourists to their destinations, but they are coming. They are coming very soon. First, let me just highlight some of the things that may actually underpin the slides that I will show to you later. But before that, actually, I will also publicize another webinar, which will be happening on the 26th of this month. This is the day after tomorrow, organized by PATA. Hong Kong Polytechnic University has been doing Asia Pacific visitor forecast for quite a few years. Actually, the formal forecast will be announced on the 26th of this month. So if you are interested in more details of the forecast produced in collaboration between PolyU and the PATA, you can join the webinar on the 26th. That's 4 o'clock Beijing time. I hope we'll see you then. At that time, I will present a more detailed forecast, 39 destinations in terms of tourist arrivals in Asia Pacific region. But I think some of these figures, actually Wolfgang already talked about, so I'm not going to repeat them again. But I think since the 8th of January 2023, China has formally announced opening up to the outside world, and also the Chinese visitors will be able to travel internationally. So there's a lot of excitement going on at the moment. I will only present 4 or 5 destinations where Chinese tourists will travel to according to our forecast in the next 3 or 4 years. So it is only a glimpse of what we have done for PATA, and then just because the time allocated is only about 15 minutes. So in the next 3 or 4 years, the Chinese tourists to Asia Pacific between 2023 to 25, as you can see, from 2023, actually is a steep recovery, and also up to 2024, actually, according to the medium scenario, the Chinese tourist arrivals within Asia Pacific will reach to the same level as pre-COVID-19. That's 2019, right? So that's just a very exciting news for many destinations within the region. And also up to 2025, you can see it has already surpassed 2019 figure by a quite large margin, especially by the medium and also mild scenario. So as you can see, the bar chart on the right-hand side indicate the pre-COVID-19 market structure. You can see actually a lot of the tourists from mainland China are actually traveling within Asia Pacific, specifically to Hong Kong, Macau, Thailand, Japan, and Korea. Other regions and destinations only accounted for 24% of overall tourist arrivals. This will happen in the next few years as well, when the Chinese tourists recovered. So in terms of Chinese tourists, outbound tourists to Hong Kong, actually Hong Kong probably recovers the fastest for being very close to mainland China, and also there's a lot of day travelers to Hong Kong as well. And also there's a pent-up demand for traveling to Hong Kong over the next few years. And also Hong Kong is the first, perhaps, destinations open to mainland Chinese tourists. So you can see up to 2023, by the end of 23, it's already half of the pre-COVID-19 level. But by 2024, it is same as the pre-COVID-19 2019 level, which is about 40 million, according to the medium scenario. Another major destination within Greater China is Macau SAR. Actually, you can see the same recovery pattern. Okay, for Thailand, which is another major destination, you can see actually Thailand probably is the first destination has opened up to Chinese tourists. Actually, is welcoming Chinese tourists. I understand high government officials actually went to the airport welcoming the first wave of Chinese tourists to Thailand, which is very encouraging. I think this word goes around within China. You will see more and more tourists traveling to Thailand, selecting Thailand as their next destination. So Singapore is the same, but the number is relatively small because the destination is a smaller destination, and due to various constraints, you will see up to 2024, it will return to pre-COVID-19 level. For Japan and Korea, these are another two major destinations. Japan actually is a very interesting case. So if everything goes according to pre-COVID-19 arrangement, actually, if you look at the forecast, the baseline forecast, which is a mild scenario, in 2022, by the end of 2023, actually it's already surpassed to the pre-COVID-19 level. But this actually probably will not going to happen because there's still some tensions between the two countries in terms of control, restrictions of Chinese tourists. So most likely scenario will be the medium scenario, which is up to 2025, a number of tourist arrivals from mainland China will probably reach to pre-COVID-19 level. And this actually similar to Korea. Actually, the recovery patterns are similar to other destinations as well. Due to time constraints in terms of destinations for Chinese tourists, I only present this few. But in order, if you want to know other destinations in terms of the impact of Chinese tourists arrivals after the opening up, please join us at the PATA webinar in 2 days' time. And this figure particularly shows the retail tourist expenditure in the next 3 years. So we also have done major survey, retail tourism survey across the globe, working together with WTTC. And then in a few months' time, we will release a more detailed report on global retail tourism in the next 3 or 4 years. Not only because of Chinese tourist influence, but also tourists across all source market and destinations. And this particular diagram shows the Chinese retail tourist expenditure in the next 3 years, what it's going to be look like for Hong Kong, Macau, Japan, Korea, Thailand, and Singapore. These are the selected destinations in terms of Chinese outbound tourists. As you can see, Hong Kong is still a preferred destination for the Chinese tourists. You can see the retail expenditure or retail income for Hong Kong will reach to 25 billion US dollars in 2025, which is huge amount of retail income for Hong Kong. But then other destinations is relatively, the actual expenditure is relatively smaller than Hong Kong, but still quite significant for Macau, Japan, Korea, Thailand, and Singapore as well. I think that's what all I have to present in terms of the trend. But I would like to finish my talk with a few remarks. The Chinese outbound tourists will recover from the short-haul destination first, followed by medium to long-haul destinations. So you will not see a huge increase in long-haul destinations in Europe, Americas, and South Americas and Africas. You will not see a huge surge of tourist arrivals in the next few months, right? This is because the traveling and the living expenses or costs is very high in the long-haul destinations. So there's actually is cost constraint. And also some supply constraint also influence the Chinese travelers to the long-haul destinations, especially the airline capacity has constraints. It's very difficult actually to recruit or to return to the pre-COVID-19 capacities in terms of airline capacities. So it takes some time, and also labor shortages in the destination, and also some influence of geopolitical conflicts between China and a few Western countries. I think this also play some role in terms of the influence. And also in the running up to the second quarter of 2023, the main type of Chinese outbound tourists will be mainly VFR tourists visiting relatives and friends, and also business travels, because for 3 years, many overseas Chinese have not been able to visit their relatives and friends in China, and vice versa. Chinese tourists cannot visit their relatives and friends overseas. So when China opened, actually, this is the first wave of tourists who are traveling internationally. And also business travelers is another main segment because, you know, the business ties is going to become more stronger, and a lot of business travelers will be traveling out of China and into China. And also the big increase in Chinese outbound travel will likely to occur during the May Golden Week holiday. So you probably will see a major increase of tourist arrivals in long-haul destinations since maybe May holiday. They call it Golden Week holiday. From there, probably we'll see a huge increase of international arrivals in the long haul market. And also that sentiment of Chinese tourists. So we have done some survey of the potential Chinese tourists in terms of the travel sentiment, and they actually indicate that they would be more a bit more selective in terms of destination choices. In the short run, probably they would more likely to travel to the so-called friendly destinations, at least for the short run, medium run. By friendly, we mean, they are probably welcoming the Chinese tourists and without any restrictions and all bias toward Chinese tourists. I think that's just, I'm going to finish my talk. Thank you very much.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Haiyan. That's very insightful. And I think the seminar that you'll be running with the Pacific Asia Travel Association in the next few days will be very, very interesting to many of the people listening in tonight also.
Thank you.
We now need to move on to our next speaker, is Professor Ahmed Pouad bin Matson, who's, I think is in Glasgow in the UK at the University of Strathclyde. He has an extensive background in teaching and research projects in Saudi Arabia, in the UK, the USA, Malaysia, Japan, Philippines. Ahmed, are you ready now to join the webinar?
Yes, Steve, thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Yes. So my presentation will be very short. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, greeting from Malaysia. I'm basically based in Terengganu, Malaysia, University Sultan Zainal Abidin, located in the northeast of Peninsular Malaysia. So my content will be very much similar to what Song and Gary and Wu Gang have already mentioned, because basically China has been the biggest tourist generating market, as also being the tourist receiving country in the world. And it is forecasted from World Economic Forum that China will be the biggest tourist destination in by end of the decade in 2030. And pre-pandemic, we noticed that these are actually the top 10 destination, as mentioned by Song, where Chinese tourists are traveling overseas, outbound, and Malaysia has always been positioned in the top 10, as mentioned by Song, that usually Chinese tourists would prefer traveling to a friendly destination, which they are used to. And furthermore, like for Malaysia and China, they have a very strong ties and similarities in terms of culture. And pre-pandemic, China has always been the top 10 tourist market for Malaysia, and the number one is actually Singapore and Indonesia, followed by China. And recently, we noticed that Thailand also has released their tourist statistic for 2022, that their top 3 tourist market were from Malaysia, Indonesia, as well as from India, in the absence of China tourists in last 3 years due to COVID. But the issue facing some of the destinations in Southeast Asia, in particular Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, are the presence of $0 tourists, where Chinese tourists are being brought into the countries to some of the destination, but they are not really benefiting the local economies. So what we expect in terms of trend in post-pandemic is that Chinese tourists will be more discerning, and destination will be focusing on quality rather than quantity. So as mentioned by the previous speakers, pre-pandemic, China was the largest source of outbound tourists, 70 million tourists in 2019. But as of now, we notice that for this year, it is projected to take 110 million international trips, 2/3 of the 2019 level, and it will be economic boost to many destinations around the world. But in terms of trends, we notice that Chinese tourists are not expected to travel far in large numbers very soon, as mentioned by Song, that the flight fare is very expensive, and not many airlines are flying to the fullest capacity as pre-pandemic. And furthermore, the ban on group tour packages has yet to be lifted. And Chinese tourists from China, they are actually very diverse in terms of their travel market, and we should very much being segmentized. And we notice, as mentioned by Wu Gang, that the focus will be more experienced independent travelers, including the millennial, Gen Z, and luxury visitors. As I mentioned earlier on, we should be focusing on quality rather than quantity. So we should let go of mass tourists. We should moving more towards a special interest tourism, smaller group with higher spending. And destination safety is actually very important for Chinese travelers. And it's very interesting to note as of now that tourists from China, they look for value for money, and there have been greater willingness among them to pay for greener choices, which means that they like to go for destination that bring impact to the communities, and they would prefer to stay in a greener hotel and etc. And we like to see that a destination reduce visa hurdles for Chinese tourists. Recently, Malaysia welcomed Chinese tourists starting from 8th of January, and we expect that this year alone, we might be receiving more than 1 million Chinese tourists. I think that's all my presentation, Steve, because very much my content is very much similar to the previous presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ahmed. That's very insightful once again from your perspective in Malaysia tonight. We're going to move now from Malaysia over to Bhutan up in the Himalayas. And Mr. Dorji Dradhel is the Director General of the Tourism Council of Bhutan. And I would ask Mr. Dorji now to say some words from his perspective from Bhutan.
Thank you very much, Steve. And also thank you very much, Dr. Rizal, for giving me this opportunity to be part of this wonderful webinar, and also my respect to the distinguished speakers earlier and also following, especially Mr. Dr. Rifal, the former Secretary General of UNWTO. So, and also to all the other participants, a very warm and happy greetings from Kingdom of Bhutan. And I will not have much to add on to what the earlier speakers have already touched upon, especially when it comes to the Chinese outbound tourism at the global stage. I think it's been well covered. So I thought I will just also share little information on Chinese tourism in Bhutan. You know, Bhutan is a very small country, and our tourism, even in terms of scale, and also is very small. So therefore, but despite this, Chinese, in terms of arrivals in Bhutanese context, Chinese has been over the years have been picking up. In fact, by 2019, China was already ranking third actually. First was from US in Bhutanese context, and then second was from China, besides India, our neighboring countries, India and Bangladesh. So it was picking up pre-pandemic, and now going forward also after post-pandemic, Bhutan in fact started to also to reopen to tourism on 23rd September 2022, and within just since Chinese have just started to open from 8th January officially, even from 8th January till as of date, I think we have already received about 100 plus Chinese. So of course the number 100 in most of your destinations is very small, but in Bhutanese context, even 100 within just a 1 month, within 3 weeks is a very, very, very big number. So in a way, the way Bhutan has also transformed in terms of tourism after the COVID, now we are really going into high value, low volume, quality over quantity, which some of the other speakers have already touched upon, sustainability, going away from so-called mass tourism, going towards the spiritualism, nature, and also family kind of a tourism. And so we feel that in a way, Bhutan is already preparing towards what the earlier speakers, Professor Wolfgang and Professor Gary, in your wonderful book that you have just shared with us, some of those things which you are already touched upon, looks like Bhutan, not knowingly, is already doing this. And I definitely look forward to getting a copy of this book. I'm sure it must be available online to purchase. So I will do that, and it will be very helpful for Bhutan, because for Bhutan, while quality over quantity, high value, low volume, we are not really going for the numbers as such, but despite this, we still need a number. So therefore, Chinese will be always an important source for us. And maybe I think I'll stop here, and thank you so much. I again continue to look forward to the following speakers. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dorji. We appreciated your views from the wonderful Kingdom of Bhutan. We're going to move now back for more of a regional perspective, and with Catherine from the Destination Mekong organization. Everybody, just be aware also, as far as our speakers tonight, their backgrounds and profiles are all on links on the tourism webinar website. So I'm not giving a lot of detail about people's backgrounds, but rest assured, all our speakers tonight are very highly experienced and expert in their fields from different parts of the world. And they've all done fantastic things in their lifetimes to contribute to all the good things that travel and tourism can bring to our planet. And Catherine is one of those, and she's going to address us now.
Thank you, Steve. And, I'm very, no, I'm blushing. You cannot see that, but you are one of those fantastic people, who make things happen. So together with Celebrify and, Geoffrey Lipman and all those extraordinary people here. So I would like, and thank you, Reza, for inviting me. And I was just wondering whether we have some Chinese people as our participants. I'm not sure about that, but if they are joining us, I'd like to say hello. I would like to bring a personal perspective, because we talked a lot about the Chinese market, and I would like to talk a little about my personal experience as a person and also as someone involved in destination management and also as a sustainable tourism development and marketing consultant. First, I would like to say, before, now I'm living in Cambodia, I'm French. And before living in Cambodia, I was living in Korea. So it was very interesting for me to get, familiar with the Chinese market, because the Chinese market was very important for Korea, until at some point there was some issues like pandemics, like MERS, or also political tension. And something that happened is that there was over tourism in Korea due to the Chinese tourism. I wouldn't say Chinese tourist. Then after there was a decline, in arrival. And so it means that at some point I'd like to talk about the codependency. Many countries are depending on the Chinese market, which is not good. And they are depending on tourism also, which is not good. Secondly, I'd like to say that, that's also part of the my life purpose, also to advocate value over volume and quality over quantity, not only when we talk about tourism. So what I would like to talk also is about the Chinese people. When I was a child, not so long ago, but still last century, I was called Chinese in France, because people didn't know the difference between Vietnamese, Cambodian, Chinese, Japanese, Korean. So for me, that was kind of annoying, but I decided, to build on that, because I really wanted to show people that despite my Asian appearance, I was French. And also, during COVID, when I traveled to France, I was almost scared of, showing my face, because at that time there was some kind of a Chinese bashing. People didn't want to see Chinese travelers. They didn't want to be Chinese because for them they were, the guilty ones, bringing COVID to the world. So now I can see the same people saying, okay, Chinese people are welcome. We want you to come back. And I think it's a little, we need to be a little more sensitive about Chinese people. First, because, it's a young market in terms of tourism. Chinese tourism started in 1997. I hope I'm not wrong. So they need to be accustomed, about the rules and regulation about how to be a traveler. But at the same time, I had fun trip, bird watching tours with Chinese travelers. I also studied a hiking club with people, it was international, and there was also a Chinese participant. At the beginning of last year, in January, I also participated in a farm trip for community-based ecotourism, and there was a Chinese participant. So Chinese tourism is not only about casino, shopping, food. Some people mention about nature tourism, adventure tourism, active tourism, and also, even cultural heritage tourism, spiritual tourism. So my point is that recently I read articles about we want the Chinese people back to go to the casino, to go shopping. And actually we don't want Chinese travelers, we want their money. So I think we need to be more, again, sensitive. We need to listen to those Chinese travelers. We need to listen to their aspiration, especially the young people. I think that globally, young people are depressed. They are very eco-anxious about climate change, about any kind of problems. We need to listen to them, and we need to offer them, those of the beaten track experiences, unique experiences. And it's not only young people, it's also, it has to be intergenerational, I would say, and international and intercultural, because this is the beauty of tourism, mutual understanding. I think Dr. Rifai really advocated, the role of tourism of mutual understanding. So I would say, I would like to suggest, because, Destination Mekong, we are promoting the Mekong region, which actually includes Yunnan province and the Guangxi region, Chinese province and region. So we are promoting this region as a single destination. And this single destination should, bring value, impact, and opportunities for all. And this year, we will focus on two aspects. First one is active tourism, and active tourism means adventure, nature, and etc. Ecotourism, especially because we want to promote the destination as a sustainable destination. And also, second word, engagement. And I think engagement and connection is the best way, to, I wouldn't say solve all those issues that we have in the world. But if you think about this, many activities that are promoted through mass tourism are addictive activities. And sometimes you go to a casino, there is no sense of the place. You are just like in prison, like the same as you were when you were locked down. So we want to promote, going outside, meeting the local communities, and having a positive impact on people and the planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for your views and perspectives. That's much appreciated. We're going to move from your part of the world now over back to the Himalayas, to Nepal. And I'm going to invite Shada, who's the branding, marketing and promotions involvement with the Nepal Tourism Board, to make some comments for us. Shadra, may I invite you now?
Good evening, everybody. Namaste from Nepal. I have a short presentation. I'm just trying to share my screen. Oh, God.
Reza, do you need to give some assistance to China?
Well, she can't share. She has the admin, so she just have to click on the share screen.
Yes, I did.
You've been practicing this for the last 30 minutes, and just when you need it, it won't.
I know.
While Shadra is getting her technology
Steve,
organized.
Steve, can I do one thing? Can I share my presentation to Reza and I take the last part? Is it okay?
Yeah, well, yeah, but I may not be able to share it for you, but you can try later. So let's let first the next speaker.
Let's go to Lao. Let's move over to Lao. Somshay is the Deputy Director General of the Tourism Development Department at the Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism in Lao. And I believe he's on his mobile phone. So let's see if we can get a voice in from Lao.
Thank you, Steve. That's great to see you here. I hope you can hear me very well.
Nice
That's very good. That's a very good evening for everyone. My name is Somsay Sipasearch, Deputy Director General of Tourism Development Department, MICT Laopedia. So I would like to share especially the Chinese tourist perspective. In general, many of you are probably already aware that the Chinese tourist market is a very big market. The China's current population is 1,400 million people. It's a powerful market with high spending, and many countries have tried to defend in various policies. In order to attract more tourists to visit, especially to Laos, we also very take into consideration. As in 2019, we also organized the Visit Laos and China year, and then we received over the 1 million tourist arrival. The increasing is 21 increasing number. According, I checked after the Chinese office officially opened the country, and then I checked with our department in Lonamta. After they opened, the number of the Chinese arrival at the Boten International Border checkpoints is reached to 3,000 to 4,000 tourist arrival per day. That's a quite big number. And based on our estimates that hopefully we can receive 5 million Chinese to Laos, because as you may know that we also have the Lao-China right way, the highway, and the improve of the tourist access road to the destination. Also improve the tourism product to attract more tourist market. As you are also, based on the potential, our nation have the various strength and weakness that some, especially we consider to have many advantages, such as I already mentioned, that we have not only the highway, and we also have to connect the border checkpoint with the China, and we also have direct flight, and tourism company connect to each other, especially now a big, quite big investment from the China come to invest in tourism sector and in various sector as well. Including the investigate in tourism is considered to be an important potential for facilitate and to attract more Chinese tourists to visit Laos in the future. So I believe that if we can prepare well, that's we can receive more tourists from China, and we can gain a lot of the potential from Chinese. That's all for my perspective. Thank you so much.
Well, so thank you very much for your contributions from the landlocked, wonderful destination of Laos in the Mekong. We're going to move back over to Nepal and see if Shraddha's technical skills are working okay now. But before I move over to Shraddha, Jeffrey Lippman, can just put you on standby as the final speaker after Nepal? And in your comments, Jeffrey, would you be kind enough to do a little bit of a wrap up for us on your thoughts about the Chinese inbound, outbound markets in this almost, I don't like to use the phrase post-COVID, COVID's not going away, but as the world is managing COVID to an extent where economies can open up. If I could put you on standby for that, Jeffrey, that would be wonderful.
Thanks for the great advance notice, Steve.
Yes, that's pretty good. That's 8 minutes, and you'll get me back one day. And then let's head for Nepal. Head for the mountains in Nepal. Shraddha, can you hear me? We lost Shraddha. You may get less notice, Jeffrey.
Looks like it.
I think we might have lost the connection with Nepal. And we might move on, I think, Reza, that's okay with you.
Yes,
look,
because I don't see her line as well.
I think she might have lost the connection. Look, we have well over 1,000 people, as I mentioned before, around the world on different platforms listening in. And many people who are listening in will know Jeffrey Lippman, but many will not. Jeffrey's one of those people in over 40, 50 odd, maybe longer years. He's a pathfinder and he's a path maker. He has visions about good things that tourism can do for places and for the planet. And he's made a lot of things happen in his history in aviation, in the private sector of tourism, and in the intergovernmental sector. I think one of the best ways to describe him is something I saw recently where he was called a creative disruption architect. And I think that's a good way to introduce Professor Jeffrey Lippman as our final speaker on this tourism webinar about the China markets in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Steve. And one of the great things about having been for more than half a century in this amazing tourism sector is the number of good friends that I've made over the years. And I see so many of them on this call, including you, Steve, and Taleb and John, George Dracopoulos. And it's just great to see you all. And I was also very sad when John reminded me that our old friend Nancy Cockrell had passed away, because she did so much, particularly in the region, and was such a good person. So look, I want to also thank Reza for the late acceptance. I kind of inserted myself into this seminar when I saw it, and I saw the nature of the presentations. And in my latter days, I've become like the Roman Senator Cato, who never stood up without saying, Carthage must be destroyed. And so my question to everybody is, I've heard all the numbers, and Steve's asked me to do some sort of summary, which I'll try to do at the end of my comments. But the question I keep asking is, where's the climate crisis link? The existential, I repeat that word, existential climate crisis. Or is that on another planet? Or in a different webinar? Another silo? The IPCC last year said we are heading towards a cataclysmic 2 to 3 degrees of heating by 2050. Not the relatively safe 1.5 degrees. And I say relatively safe because it will still be much worse than we're getting at the moment. The floods, the fires, the landslides, and they don't ever get better. Every year gets worse and worse. To reach even 1.5, the IPCC says we must peak emissions in 2025. We must halve them by 2030, and we must have this nebulous net zero by 2050. And as soon as all these 2050 figures came out, the institutions jumped on them. There isn't an organization now that doesn't have a net zero 2050 and a 50% reduction in 2030, but nothing, repeat, nothing on 2025. And why is that? Because that's not business as usual, or business almost as usual. And we have to look at 2025. It's a global inconvenient truth. And if we don't play our part as tourism in this worldwide transformation, we failed. So I've taken on the role of Cato in almost any discussion I can inject myself into. We need new metrics. I've looked at seen all of Wolfgang, and Wolfgang always produces incredible figures on China and the others that we've heard today. None of them link tourism growth and climate realities. None of them put together the expected reinvigoration of the global China market with the required reduction in emissions that we need if we're to hit our climate targets. If we don't change now, says the IPCC, it will be too late by 2030 and even much worse by 2050. We have to peak in 2025. If not, all these discussions are surrealistic. Now, I'm involved, and I want to share with you, in an initiative to try to help that rethinking. And it's something that's called the TPCC, the Tourism Panel on Climate Change. It was launched by the Sustainable Tourism Global Council, which Gloria Guevara is heading up in Saudi Arabia, and I'm a so-called envoy for it. And the initiative is spearheaded by Daniel Scott and Susan Beckham and myself. And we are going to create an IPCC for tourism. We've gathered 65 of the top climate scientists. This year, we will do a global stock take and try to find some objective science-based numbers. And next year, we'll try to produce a what they call a science assessment, which will link proposed growth with emission realities. And if we don't do this, our sector will fail to meet its Paris 1.5 obligations, despite all of the good words from all of the organizations. So what we are looking for is what I'll call a holistic analysis of impacts of China tourism, where when you have the good figures presented by Wolfgang, at the same time, there's a correlation with the emissions impact. And maybe there has to be some new factors which say that could be the growth, but I'm afraid we can't have it. Because if we have that growth without the emission reduction, we're screwed. So that's my message today. It's time to integrate climate demands at the core of this kind of discussion. And if we don't do it, we're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, and we're condemning our kids and our grandkids to a life that Rousseau or Hobbes called nasty, brutish, and short. So, Steve, that's my message. Now, you have also asked me to give some sort of a summary.
Yes, Jeffrey.
And-
Jeffrey, may I just interrupt you? Now that we've got Shadra in Nepal back online, do you mind if I pause you? We'll go over to Nepal, give you a couple of minutes to get your thoughts together, and then come back to you after we had, because Shraddha is now ready for us in Nepal, and she'll take about 5 or 6 minutes, and then we come back to you, Jeffrey, for the last words. Would that be okay?
I always say yes to you, Steve, because you're such a good guy.
Very kind. We're going to move from Belgium over. Where are you tonight? In Belgium?
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving from Belgium to Nepal, and then we'll go back to Belgium for some final words from Jeffrey.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Geoffrey. First of all, I would like to apologize for vanishing for some time. And, like it's always Nepal and technical issues. It seems like we go hand in hand. So without further ado, I just want to do a small presentation on, since I work for the Nepal Tourism Board, my presentation will be more from a destination perspective. So it will be like more on why Chinese tourists are important for us, what is the challenges, and how Nepal is gearing itself to welcome the Chinese tourists, right? So before I go, I just want to give a brief on how Nepal and China started the tourism relationship. So we all know that, China is a big economy and a neighbor to Nepal, and it borders the northern Nepal. And, because of the strong historical relationship we had, Nepal was one of the first countries to receive the approved destination status in 2002. And since then, we have had a gradual increase in the Chinese arrivals. And at present, China is the second largest source market for Nepal. It's very, very important. And 2016, we provided free visa. Since 2016, we have been providing free visa, gratis visa for all Chinese nationals. And in 2019, the Chinese numbers soared up after the state visit of President Xi Jinping in Kathmandu. So if we talk about visitor trends and market share, in 2019, almost we had 200,000 Chinese people arriving in Nepal, which is around 15% of the market share, which is quite huge for Nepal. And when we look at today in 2022, despite of the border closure and China itself getting closed, we still had 10,000 visitors from China. So when we talk about the tourist preferences, the Chinese, when coming to Nepal, they love soft adventure. And surprisingly, when we think about the modern China, we don't think they're going for religious sites, but in Nepal, they prefer visiting Lumbini, which is the birthplace of Lord Buddha, this religious and spiritual sites, and they go for shopping. So these are the tourist preferences when it comes to Nepal. And so now after everybody's talking about, how tourism has changed pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. So what Nepal is actually doing to attract the Chinese tourists after pandemic is, so I was doing some research and I found in most of the research, it's like 21% of the Chinese nationals are very reluctant to travel because they feel unwelcomed. So that was in most of the research papers. So we want to say that, Nepal has always been very welcoming for Chinese nationals. So, the whole of the Nepal's travel and the tourism industry is waiting for the Chinese nationals to come. We are very welcoming. We have free visa and visa and arrivals. We have convenient entry procedures and easy protocols. There's no quarantine. You just have to get your vaccinated certificate, and that's all. And also a very interesting thing about the Chinese is, we have had in the past 5 years, the Chinese investment in the hotels and restaurants have increased a lot. So if we are very much preparing. So with more number of Chinese speaking guide, and this is done in a G2G basis, because the embassy itself, the Chinese embassy in Nepal itself, is helping the Nepal government to giving trainings in for Chinese language and things like that. And also we have increased accessibility. So when I talk about increased accessibility, I want to say that we have new international airports now operated in Nepal, which in fact is constructed with the help of the Chinese government. And another private airlines like Himalayan Airlines has started direct connectivity to Beijing. Till now, the capital, Nepal, Kathmandu and Beijing was not connected. So, and H9 is still is soon operating into newer destinations and most of you said that the second-tier cities of China are very potential and source markets. So we will be soon connecting Nepal with destinations like Chongqing, Sanjing, Guang, Changsha, etc. And also increase the number of chartered flights to bigger cities like Shanghai and Xi'an. And also the government is lobbying towards easy facilitation for the Chinese travelers who would like to come through the borders in their own private cars. So this is also we are doing to attract more Chinese nationals. So in case, so when we talk about what is Nepal ready for China? So what in fact Nepal is doing to attract Chinese post-COVID. So we have separated it into 4 categories. So G2G is like government to government, strengthening relations to diplomacy, using the diplomatic channels in Nepal as well as China, and strengthening the relationship because Nepal and China, due to its geopolitical positioning, I think the government relationship is very important in our case. And also we are reconnecting with the Chinese travelers counterparts through B2B actions, business to business activities, going back to the fairs, trade fairs, and to a sales mission, doing fam trips. And number 3 is like B2C, like business to consumers, activating communication channels. We're trying to position Nepal as much as in the social medias, using the WeChat, the Weibo, and corporate partnership with C-Trip and other things, and also C2C as in Nepal. So we have, I've already said, like there's so much investment coming from the Chinese sector. So we are having like an added and increased marketing from the Chinese themselves, as well as, we are gearing up with a lot of manpower who can speak Chinese. Talking about challenges, so what is the challenges right now Nepal is facing for inviting is the expensive air tickets. The hike in the fuel prices have almost doubled the prices, and now we are having a tough time competing with destinations like Thailand and Malaysia and Indonesia. Because the tour prices have almost doubled. So if you are given a choice, then the Chinese get the same package for half the price, and they have to pay like almost double, triple when coming to Nepal. So that's one of the challenges we are facing right now. And another thing is, I guess we all know, like China had published in 7th January the list of approved countries to travel immediately, 20 countries, but unfortunately Nepal is not in the list as of now. So this is another challenge which is making the Chinese a little reluctant on choosing Nepal as the destination. And another is I think Gary did mention about the payment system, the importance of the payment system. And now we all know, like, the Chinese travelers have gone from cashless to cardless, and they do everything through WeChat and Alipay. But these payment systems is still, not legal in Nepal. So we are having a lot of issues with this. And Nepal Tourism Board, with the private sector, the industry is kind of lobbying with the government to address this issue. So looking ahead, I think it's not that bad for us because I've been talking to the private sector on how they feel about the Chinese arrivals. So Nepal recently had elections and a new government is there. So, when we talk about the geopolitical, we have a favorable government, which will definitely influence the G2G visits. And we're trying to, cash these visits so that they can further influence more tourism to Nepal. And then, yes, there has been momentum since 7th Jan, the return of the Chinese businessmen and investors who had been stuck in China for the past 3 years. They've come back and they have started operating their services. And also, when I talked about the upcoming season for Chinese, they say like the March, May, and June season, June month looks quite progressive, and the October, November, which is the peak season for Nepal, is looking very nice. But then again, the airfare prices will be the deciding factor for the Chinese to choose Nepal or not. That's one of the problem. And also, as I mentioned, there has been a lot of increment in the investment in the tourism sector from the Chinese side. So that is quite encouraging from us. And with all this favorable environment, and if everything goes as plans, we are expecting the tourism industry, we're expecting to reach the figure which we had in 2019, which was around 200,000 or more in the beginning of 2024. So this was my short presentation about Nepal and the importance of Chinese tourists. And thank you again for your patience, and for giving me for the technical glitch. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you for your contributions. I'm sorry you had your technical difficulties. Ladies and gentlemen, our 90 minutes is now up. I'm going to ask Jeffrey Lippman just to say a couple of words and wrap up. And I did notice that Talib had his hand up, and if after Jeffrey said a few words, if Talib would like to say a few words, then that will be the end of our webinar tonight. Jeffrey, over to you.
Thanks, Steve. It's always a pleasure to share a platform with my friend Taleb, and it's good to see you, Taleb. Look, I'll try and be very, very brief, and I have to say I'm going to cheat a little because I'm looking at the comments in the chat, and there's some very real important takeaways included there. And I think Wolfgang and Gary have set the scene that there is an expectation of a resurgence again in Chinese travel. But what they're telling us is you better be prepared for something different. It's not going to be the way it's been in the past. Don't assume you're going to have large groups, a lot more individual travel, and a whole range of segments which you're going to have to be much more responsive to than we've been in the past. So that's one important takeaway. A second, and we had good figures, interesting assessments from Haiyan interesting metrics, and we've just heard from Shradva that there is a preparation for all of this. And I would only throw one thing in there that nobody has mentioned. This is assuming that COVID is kept under control in one way or another. And this is a very nasty bug, and it doesn't like being kept under control. So just keep at the back of your mind that we might not have seen the last of this. Another point that came out to me, which I thought was really a thoughtful comment, was from Kathy. And her comment that it's not just about numbers, it's about people. And perhaps it's time to start looking at more at the human dimension of receipt of Chinese visitors, which correlates quite a lot with knowing the segments and understanding the needs, the differing needs of the segments. And I thought it was it left a good impression on me, Kathy, your thoughtful comment. And I would not be doing myself justice if I didn't say there was also an inspired intervention on the climate crisis. And we'd all do well to keep that in mind as we look at things going forward. And with that, Steve, I'll turn the floor over to Taleb.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey. I've just had a little update on that. Taleb won't be joining us, but won't be speaking. But I'm going to go back to our first speaker on the night, which was Wolfgang in Germany. Wolfgang, can you hear me okay? Wolfgang will be our last commentary, and then we will finish up the webinar today. Thank you.
Okay. So, well, I think following on Geoff, I agree that this has been a very well spent time, and that there has been it has been very well organized by Reza and everybody helping him. Thank you very much for that. And I think the mixture of the bigger picture, which also I tried to give, and this very clear regional aspects from different parts of the world have given a lot of insights, I think, for everybody. And so, as Casey said, so many places have been playing this game of saying we want the money from the Chinese tourists, but we don't want the Chinese tourists. So that reminded me of many years ago when Germany needed workers. We would invite Italians and later Turkish workers, and we were expecting workers. And what the people who came were actually people, not just workers. And I think this is the same process happening also now, that an increased understanding that Chinese tourists are, first of all, people, and they are different from each other, and they have different interests, and also that they are interesting people. So I think we have this caricature image of the Chinese are 45 people jumping out of a bus, taking a picture, jumping back into the bus, going to the next place, eating only Chinese food, are only interested in shopping. So this has never been true completely in the past, but it is much less true in the future. And it is also so that therefore there is the better chance to, and there's a need to bring together the local host communities and the visitors. And of course, as we heard from Bhutan as well, this has to be quality, not quantity, as a major approach, which also then will help to mitigate the environmental problems which are coming with tourism right away. And I put into the chat that in our introduction to the book, we have a sentence saying that in 25 years, it is not unlikely that international tourism is over, because climate catastrophe has paid put to it. But whatever happens within this next 25 years, Chinese outbound tourists will be a major part of global tourism development. And so therefore, it is so we started here in Hamburg 2 years ago as a meaningful tourism center, and are supporting meaningful tourism as a new paradigm, exactly because if you have 11% and maybe in the future 15% of all international travelers being Chinese, you cannot leave them out. And all these discussions, we should travel less. The Chinese are saying, hey, we just started. Why should we stop now? You started 50 years ago. Now it's our turn. So we will have to include the Chinese tourism in this discussion. And fortunately, as I said in my presentation, the vast majority of Chinese is also now interested and maybe alarmed by climate change and interested in sustainability. So there is an opportunity that also they will change their behavior and will no longer the coral breaking swines they have been depicted in many places in the past. So, and this is something we certainly, which has to be in place. And this all comes down, yes, to say, okay, this is Chinese tourists are individual people in the end, and they have different interests. And the better you cater for them, the more happy they are, the more satisfied they are, the more they will be also your brand ambassador, your giving you the opportunity that you have recommendation marketing instead of spending a lot of money on social media. So, and therefore, I think, yes, we all are starting a new age, 3.0 China outbound tourism, and hopefully it will not be just going back to how it was before. We can't, and there has to be a change, and it's the demand side which is also asking for change, and so we should see that we do something. Chinese outbound tourists can be an answer to the problem of over-tourism and of seasonality, because if you offer them the right things to do, they don't come, especially for long distance travel, they don't come for holidays, they don't come for recreation, for beaches. So they come to do something, to learn something, to experience something. And if you give them a good product, they come to some unknown place in northern November because that they come for the activity, not for, so therefore, you can stop them, all people in Spain going to Barcelona and Madrid only, if you offer them good reasons. And for the Mekong region, for instance, or for Nepal, certainly this is a big opportunity now, that this first phase where everybody wanted to go to Paris because it was the most famous place, this is over. So there are more opportunities for everybody. And so for many of those who have been listening to us, I think that's good news. But it's not enough just to open the door. You have also to understand the market, to learn about the market, and to prepare for the right kind of customers. You can offer some good things to experience and to do. And I think that's all I want to say. So Steve, thank you very much for sharing us today. And I hope that 2023 and the Water Rabbit year will be a big success for everybody.
Thank you, Wolfgang, and thank you to all our speakers, and thank you to all our people joining the webinar tonight from many different parts of the world. Once again, the recording and the PowerPoints will be available on the tourismwebinar.com website as of tomorrow. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, and thank you,
Bye-bye.
Steve, for doing a wonderful moderation and all the wonderful speakers from everywhere. Thank you so much. From tomorrow, so everything will be online, and including your PowerPoints, and please send it to me if you still didn't send. And thank you, Wolfgang, and congratulations with your new book. So, and thank you, Geoffrey Lippman.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.